Hey folks, it's Chef Kevin. Tonight I'm making one of the most famous comfort foods in the world, beef stroganoff. This is a classic recipe. It actually came from Russia hundreds of years ago. And there's something else that came from Russia too.
Now, I've been here for a while and I still make mistakes because you have so many confusing expressions. Like, for example, one guy came over to me and he said, I quit smoking cold turkey. I said, whatever makes you happy. What do you smoke now, ham? I was in a friend of mine's car. It's a Chrysler that talks to you. And it says, the door is ajar. Now, there's a confused recording. The window is a spoon. Some ads in the paper were confusing. Like I saw the ad says, big sale last week. Now, why advertise? I already missed it. They're just rubbing it in. I saw the ad in Yellow Pages, says bill collectors. Now I know people collect coin stamps. These people collect bills. What a country. I send them all my bills.
Thank you, Yakov Smirnoff. You had your 15 minutes of fame back in the 90s. Okay, I got a lot of stuff here. Let's take a closer look. Okay, I have a whole bunch of good stuff here. Start with the meat first. This is 2 1/4 pounds of beef chuck. Now this is what you should be using. This is inexpensive and it's a real great meat. It's a tasty meat, but it's also very chewy, so it'll break down over time. Stews are usually made from meat that you really can't eat other than a stew. Okay, I have a pound of mushrooms here. I have white buttons and crimini here. I have 2 cups of beef stock. I have sour cream. Sour cream is what makes this beef stroganoff dish beef stroganoff. I have some butter, Coleman's mustard. I have an onion and a shallot. I have some garlic. I have salt and pepper, olive oil, and I almost forgot the flour. Okay, first thing I'm going to do is prep the meat. Okay, so this is a big piece of meat here. This is boneless. It was only $6 a pound approximately. Now, don't be tempted to buy the pre-cut beef that they usually sell in packages for stews. I find that the sizes are not consistent, and it's always good to have consistently sized pieces of meat or vegetables or whatever. This way they all cook in the same time. Plus I notice there's a lot of muscle on those, a little muscle and not bone. Alright. Now there's no real hard and fast rules about how to cut these. I'm going to put them in cubes, try to keep them pretty much the same size. Okay, so the meat is cubed. Now if you want, you could have cut them in strips, but it really doesn't make a difference. It's all going to taste the same. And what I was trying to point out earlier is not so much the fat, but the connective tissue. Now that'll all break down as this meat cooks. Okay, next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add some flour. That's probably like a third of a cup of flour. You really don't need a whole lot. Now what this does, two things. It'll make it nice and crispy on the outside, give it a nice sear, and it'll also give it a nice little nutty flavor from the burnt flour. So what I'm going to do now is go to the range and start cooking this off. Okay, this is a 6-quart Staub Dutch oven or cocotte. Add a couple of tablespoons of high heat oil. This is a stove, it's cast iron, and it has the non-stick interior. Now the other thing this flour is going to do is act as a binder, or a thickener, I should say, for the sauce. Okay, as big as this is, I'm going to have to do this in 2 batches because I don't want to crowd the pot. This will only take about 3 minutes per side though. Going to add a little sea salt. And a little black pepper. You can see it's getting nice and brown already. So here's my sauteed beef, and it's nice and brown. There's a couple of little pink spots in there, but that's okay. This is gonna get cooked down anyway. Okay, so I'm gonna use the same pot for 2 reasons. Number one, I don't want to have to wash another pot, and number 2, and this is more important, it has fond on the bottom. All that brown stuff, that's flavor from the beef. That's not trash. There was a little residual oil in there, so I did pull that off. That's 2 tablespoons of butter. And this fond will eventually release from the bottom of the pan and get incorporated into the stew. Okay, I have 2 cups of sliced mushrooms, and I sliced these relatively thickly because this is a stew. A stew is supposed to be rustic, not refined. Sometimes I think the word rustic means lazy. I'll let you decide. Okay, I'm going to let these cook down. So all the water has evaporated and all that butter will be absorbed by the mushrooms. The mushrooms nicely browned off. Going to add my 1 small onion and 1 shallot. Going to add some salt and pepper now. Going to let this cook down now. These onions have to cook down. I'm going to sweat them out, so it won't take too long, really, just a few minutes. And then I'm going to add the garlic last. I don't want it to burn. We are looking real good here, folks. Going to add about 2 tablespoons of fresh ground garlic. I'm only going to let this cook down for a couple of minutes, and probably even less. Like I said, I don't want this to burn. It smells so good already. Now there's 1,000 variations on this recipe. Excuse me. Originally it called for mustard, but some more modern recipes don't add the mustard. I'm going to add the mustard. Some countries, some dishes are served with rice, others with dumplings, but I'll be using egg noodles, which is kind of iconic of all the ingredients. I have 2 cups of beef stock. Now that fond is off the bottom of the pot now. That's called deglazing. So all that flavor is in the pot. Going to add my meat in. Well, it looks like a stew. Okay, I'm going to add some mustard. Typically Dijon would be served, but I'm using Coleman's English mustard. This is really nice and spicy. I'm not going to add a lot though. This is not supposed to be mustard stew. We should do it. About a tablespoonful. There we go. I'm also going to add some dry red wine. That was maybe half a cup at most. That'll give it some flavor. Okay, I'm going to bring this up to a simmer and then cook it for about 45 minutes. Then I'll check it, see if it's tender enough. Right now it's not tender at all. Like I said earlier, chuck is very tough meat, but it goes great in stews and burgers. Most burgers have chuck in them. That's why it's very tasty. Okay, I'm going to bring this to a simmer and I'll be back in 45 minutes. So it's been 45 minutes and I just took the lid off. It's not quite as thick as I would like. So I'm just going to continue to cook it down. Needs to be thicker than that. I don't want to add any more flour. So I'm just going to reduce it. I tasted it. It's so good. Okay, I'm going to let that reduce. In the meantime, I have my egg noodles cooking as well. Okay, folks, so it's been like an hour stewing away here. It's nice and thick. I've been tasting it. It tastes so good. Now, I apologize for any background noises. I'm actually watching Top Gun with Tom Cruise, the original. And Goose just lost it.
Characters are going to Top Gun. For 5 weeks, you're going to fly against the best fighter pilots in the world. You were number 2. Cougar was number 1. Cougar lost it, turned in his wings.
Yeah, I just said Cougar lost it. I love that movie because I served 2 years on an aircraft carrier. Okay, I just added a cup of sour cream. And this is what makes this stew a beef stroganoff. There's so many variations upon any stew, any food. Now the sour cream that I added was at a room temperature. I didn't want to add a cold sour cream because it may have curdled. So I'm going to bring that back to a simmer, and this should be ready to go within 10 minutes. So here's my beef stroganoff that I just made. Now what I do is I put it in the refrigerator overnight, and this way all the fat will rise to the surface. And I'm going to skim it off. As well as I can. Now I'm so sick about these chefs and foodies raving about how fat is flavor and all this crap. Nah. It's not good. So this way I pull the fat off. And I throw it down not the sink, I put it in the trash. I don't feel like calling the Roto-Rooter guy. And this way it's a little healthier for you. I mean, I know stew is not health food, but it's so good. Okay, there really wasn't that much fat in there, but I'm going to discard it. Now I can reheat this and serve it. And that's what I'm going to do next. Well, there it is, folks. Chef Kevin's beef stroganoff, served with traditional egg noodles, garnished with a dab of sour cream and some chives. Now I think this really came out nice. You can taste the sour cream. The mustard is in there, but you really don't taste it. It's a side note. The beef is nice and tender, and yeah, overall this came out pretty nice, I think. Okay, folks, if you like my beef stroganoff, if you like me, then throw me a friggin' bone here.
Throw me a frickin' bone here.